So why am I here talking to you about a learning event on education and blended finance? Well, I'm here because of all else, I want us to succeed in breaking new ground in demonstrating the value of public-private partnerships in the education sector. First, I wanted you here because I believe that as a group, we're stronger together than what we can do individually in our own countries, firms, or offices. Second, this is a learning event. Learning, to me, is more than just gaining knowledge. Learning is putting knowledge into action.
How do we mobilize greater private finance? How do we increase access for the poor? And lastly, to improve learning outcomes for the poor. So now we, right here, are in a very critical moment as 3 years has passed by us. So it's incumbent for us to build the case by ensuring that both at the country level and at the global multi-country level, that key data is captured, that learning is prioritized by having data synthesized, analyzed, and by developing key knowledge products in various formats. And thirdly, to disseminate widely and communicate widely in our respective organizations the learnings from this activity.
I think education finance is almost like a misnomer within this context. I mean, we already know there's no purely commercial solution to financing education. We also know that if we only focus on the concessional finance pieces of this, there's never going to be enough money to go around and to address the massive demand, right? So what's the answer? And it may not bring comfort to everybody here. It's not simple. It's just never going to be simple. The answer is going to be in a mix. And so how will we know that we're successful in our efforts? And for me and for Palladium, a big part of our success comes from the ground up, making sure that those that we're trying to help are at the forefront of our minds in terms of designing and scaling solutions.
I think at the macro level, since we are at the macroeconomic factors, there are a couple of things. First of all, in Pakistan, for example, what has really helped is that the government has categorized education lending as priority sector lending. All the banks have a certain quota to meet in terms of priority sector lending. And banks in any market are the cheapest source of capital, right? I mean, if you went to any non-banking institution, they are borrowing from banks and therefore they have to mark up the rates. So the only way to get banks interested into education, or rather a very powerful way, is by putting education financing as part of priority sector lending.
Having reached this level where we've convinced the financial institutions to actually invest their capital, if we can link them up to cheaper sources of funding, specific for EdFinance, it would make sense. Because in practice, education financing is actually consumption loan because it's social, it's less of business. But now the same sector is accessing rates as commercial businesses, so it beats the whole social element. So they would still be willing, and they usually request, if we can actually help them access cheap sources of funding, they are willing to borrow them as private financial institutions, but at lower rates to enable them extend cheaper facilities to these private schools. That would go a great deal to support the program.
A lot of challenges of kind of positioning private operators to government, and it's really important to be quite careful around language. And this was an area that we thought it would be great to really package up different partners' experience so that we can all learn from one another.
Another theme that came out pretty continuously was the need for time, patient, not just patient capital, but that education especially is a longer term kind of a trajectory to really achieve these outcomes. And so really it needs its time to mature, both in terms of the impact investment and the sort of financial access, as well as the implementation effectiveness.
The learning event has been very exciting. For me, I think it's a lot of exposure and also getting to meet a lot of different people from different sectors, people who are playing various roles in the education sector. As we know, to be able to deliver, we need all stakeholders. So far for me, I think there's a lot of learning and sharing, and I think these are the kinds of events that we need, because coming from Zambia, working on our own program, sometimes you don't get to see a clear picture of what everybody else is doing, but now basically this provides the kind of information that you need to see your role and how it fits into the bigger picture.